Before gold, before coins, before paper money, before Bitcoin. The world ran on beer. And not just any beer. Beer that was thick, nutritious, calorie-dense. Beer that kept you alive when water would kill you. Beer that built the pyramids. Beer that built the ziggurats. Beer that funded the world's first government. Right now in the British Museum in London sits a small clay tablet, 5,000 years old. It is the oldest payslip ever discovered by humans, and on it, scratched into wet clay by a Sumerian accountant in the city of Uruk in 3300 BC, is a record of wages paid to a worker. Not in gold, not in silver, not in grain, in beer. This is not a quirky historical footnote. This is the story of how human civilization was built on an addictive substance used as money, and what that tells us about every economy that has existed since. To understand why beer became money, you need to understand what life was like in ancient Mesopotamia. It is 3300 BC. You live in Uruk, the world's first real city. Population, up to 80,000 people. Bigger than anything else on Earth at this time. You have a problem, a massive, civilization-threatening problem. The water will kill you. In a city of 80,000 people, the water is contaminated by the very population that depends on it. But beer? The fermentation process kills the bacteria. The alcohol makes it safe. A worker drinking beer instead of water stays alive, stays strong, stays productive. Beer wasn't just a luxury, it was survival technology. Now here's the second problem. You have 80,000 people in a city. They all need to eat, they all need to work. Someone needs to build the temples, someone needs to dig the irrigation channels, someone needs to move the stone. But there is no money yet, no coins, no currency, no standardized exchange. So how do you pay 80,000 people to show up and work every single day? The Sumerians looked at what everyone needed, what everyone wanted, what was safe to drink, what was nutritious enough to replace a meal, what could be produced in large quantities, what could be easily divided into portions. And the answer was obvious: beer. Here is how it actually worked. The temples, the ziggurats, were not just religious buildings. They were the government, the bank, the employer, the welfare system, all in one giant stepped pyramid. Priests ran the economy. They collected surplus grain from farmers as taxes. Officially, it was an offering to the gods. In practice, it was compulsory taxation consumed by the temple bureaucracy. That grain went into the temple brewery. The temple brewery produced beer at industrial scale, and that beer became the wage of every worker in the city of Uruk. How much beer? The clay tablets tell us exactly. A basic laborer received about 1 sila of beer per day, roughly 1 liter. A supervisor received 2 sila. A skilled craftsman received more. A temple official received significantly more. This was the world's first minimum wage, the world's first wage hierarchy, the world's first payroll system, all recorded in cuneiform on clay tablets, all stored at the British Museum today. Function 1. Nutrition. The Sumerian beer was not like modern beer. It was thick, almost like a porridge, loaded with carbohydrates, proteins, B vitamins. 1 liter of Sumerian beer provided a significant portion of a worker's daily caloric needs. It was food and drink in one. Function 2. Safety. The fermentation process made it safe to consume when water was not. A worker paid in beer was being paid in survival. Function 3. Control. And this is the part nobody talks about. Beer is mildly addictive. Beer creates dependency. Beer makes the person who provides it extraordinarily powerful. The temple didn't just pay workers in beer. The temple created a population that needed to come back to the temple for beer every single day. The world's first employer was also the world's first dealer. Here is where it gets darker. The beer wage system worked beautifully for the temples that controlled it, but it created something the Sumerians may not have fully intended. The world's first economic inequality. The tablets show us that workers at the bottom received exactly enough beer to survive, 1 liter per day, no more. Workers at the top, priests, officials, administrators, received enough beer to trade, to save, to accumulate wealth. Because excess beer could be traded for grain, for land, for livestock. Beer was liquid wealth, and like all liquid wealth, it flowed upward. The workers who built the ziggurats received just enough to come back tomorrow. The priests who managed the ziggurats received enough to become the first wealthy class in human history. This system, pay workers just enough to survive while those at the top accumulate excess, was not unique to Sumer. It is the template. Every wage system since has operated on the same fundamental principle: pay enough to retain the worker, keep enough to retain the power. The Sumerians invented this 5,000 years ago with beer. And then the twist inside the twist. When silver eventually replaced beer as the primary currency around 2500 BC, the temple didn't lose power. They simply switched the medium. The same priests who controlled the brewery now controlled the silver weights. The same hierarchy that determined who got 1 liter and who got 5 liters now determined who got 1 shekel and who got 5 shekels. The commodity changed. The system didn't. Let's zoom all the way out. 5,000 years ago in the city of Uruk, a Sumerian accountant pressed a stylus into wet clay and recorded the world's first payslip. 1 worker, 1 day's labor, 1 liter of beer. That clay tablet is now in the British Museum. It survived 5,000 years. The worker who earned that beer is dust. But the system that tablet represents? It never ended. The commodity changed from beer to grain, from grain to silver, from silver to gold, from gold to paper, from paper to digital numbers on a screen. But the structure underneath, the temple that controls the currency, the hierarchy that determines who gets more, the worker who receives just enough to return tomorrow, that structure has never changed, not once. In 5,000 years. The Sumerians didn't just invent beer money, they invented the template for every economic system that followed. And here is the question that should stay with you. Right now, somewhere in the world, there is a worker receiving a wage in whatever the current currency happens to be. And somewhere above them, there is an institution that controls that currency. That decides how much is printed. That decides who gets more and who gets less. That benefits from the worker returning tomorrow. The commodity is different. The clay tablet is digital now. The ziggurat has a logo and a board of directors, but the accountant is still pressing their stylus into the record. And the worker is still getting exactly enough to come back.